Okay, here we are at the first section, and this section is called tremolo picking. Now, tremolo picking is basically playing one note as fast as you can. Okay, so we just take a note, any note that we like. I'm going to use an E on the B string just to start. We play that note, and then with our right hand, we just pick it as quick as we can up and down. So it basically sounds like this. Okay, now before we get into the different things that we can do with this technique, let's just actually look at the technique, break it down, and see what we need to make it work. Okay, now with the left hand, obviously all you really need to do is just hold down the note that you're doing the tremolo picking upon, and it's the right hand that's got a much, it's got the more complicated part to play. Okay, so first of all, how do we hold the pick? Well, what I basically do is I put my thumb forward like that. Hopefully you can see that. And then the first finger of my right hand, if you're right-handed, obviously if you're left-handed, the other hand, is at kind of like a 90-degree angle like that. So it's sort of making, if I turn it upside down, it's making that sort of, if I do it like that, you can see. This finger is sort of at a 90-degree angle with the last joint sort of bent slightly in, and then the thumb comes out, and then you put the pick in there like that. Now, how you hold the pick is not necessarily the most essential thing, because a lot of people have got different preferences on the right hand. Those of you who know Eddie Van Halen know he holds it like that between those two fingers. What I do is mine's a fairly conventional way. Like I say, I have that finger with that 90-degree angle, that thumb going across, and if I just take off that hand, you can see how that pick is just lying across there like that. Okay, I'll just put it back. And then the thumb goes on to hold it. The really important thing is to not show too much of the pick, okay? So if you look there, you can see that it's just the amount I need sticking out the end. And the reason for that is because if I had a lot of the pick shown, it would be very easy, for that pick to move in my hand, okay? Can you see that? All right, so by showing less of the pick, it's very difficult for that pick to move in the hand. For two reasons, because I'm not showing much of it, and obviously I've got more of the pick to grip there. Now, what I also do with my right hand is a thing I think I got from Steve Morse originally when I was messing around with different picking techniques, and he's got an amazing picking technique, so I figured he'd be a good person to look at. And obviously the other person is Michael Batio, but he's got a very unconventional way, which didn't seem particularly practical for me to copy. So I decided to look at somebody who was somewhere like what I was doing, but also a very good picker, which was Steve Morse. And what he does is he tends to, or this is what it looks like to me, he brings this finger over, this second finger over, and he just kind of puts it on that first finger like that. And I believe it's just to add a little bit of strength. It's not essential, okay, but it just adds a little bit of strength when you're doing that technique and just makes it all a little bit sort of compact. Okay. Now, some people do tend to fan out their right hands. I don't. I tend to keep mine in like that. I've always got a little bit of a quest for, sort of cleanliness and tidiness when I'm playing, and that seems to work for me. So, anyway, there we go again. The thumb out like that, the first finger at that right angle with the 90-degree angle, with the end just bent over, and then if you choose to do it, that second finger coming over like that and just showing a very small amount of the pick. Okay, now, I know this is probably a little bit tedious, but this will really help you just to follow these few simple things. Now, secondly, the type of pick that we use. Now, this has normally got my name on it, but it's kind of worn down a bit now. Now, this is a Dunlop 2mm pick. It's very, very thick. I don't know if you can get a thicker one than this, but this is very, very thick. And it doesn't move, okay? It doesn't bend. And the reason I use this pick is because when it's on the string, if you've got, like a lighter pick, that pick will actually bend, which will, in effect, slow you down. So with this pick, it doesn't move on the string, okay? You are in control of the picking, not the pick, okay? So that's why I use that. Now, this one has actually worn down a little bit now, but what I do is, because most plectrums that you get, apart from some of the Jazz Dunlop 3, I think already comes very pointed. What I do is I file mine down so that they're more pointed at the end, because the particular pick that I like is a little bit rounded at the top there. or bottom, whichever way you want to look at it. And the reason I file it down is because when that plectrum is on the string, again, it's got less to move. If it's very, very rounded, you have to put the pick further down to get the point, and then there's more sort of land mass at that part of the pick that has to pass across the string, if you like. When it's more pointed, it literally, you've got that tiny bit at the end, and that will aid your speed, believe me. So get a nice pointed pick, or if your favourite pick happens to be one that's got a more rounded end, then just get like I do and just get a little file and go down. You can do it with a nail file sometimes, or a little file you get from a hardware store, and you just file those down, and then what you'll find is that will just bring it to a nice point. Okay, so thick pick, pointed pick, and as I said, now what you might find is if you find that when you put your hand on the guitar, your plectrum doesn't reach the strings, because what you don't want to be is like this. Okay, I used to pick like that, and I actually got a fair amount of success doing it, but I just found there were certain things I couldn't play. Okay, because what I would do is I'd pick like this and my hand would just sort of fall off the end. This is definitely the way to do it, with this part of the hand on the bridge there, damping. Basically, if you were playing like a rhythm part like that, with that palm there, and you want to be in the same place for picking, okay? So you want your hand more over, so that the plectrum is actually sort of slightly angled that way, not that way, okay? More down like that. It doesn't have to be kind of extreme. I know you see some people when they sweep pick, they might change the angle more, but you want the angle slightly down like that. And obviously if you've got your hand up here, that won't happen. It'll be more like that. Again, you know, if someone's watching this and they're an amazing picker doing it like that, then don't change just because of what I'm telling you. But if you do need help with your picking and you are looking for a new technique, or you're just starting off, then this would be a pretty good place to start, okay, with the plectrum just down like that. Now, when you put your hand on the guitar, if you see, like I do, that the plectrum isn't actually touching the strings, and what I'll do is I'll show you like that, then what you need to do is extend this out slightly, okay? So can you see that? What you do is you extend it out, that thumb out, until the plectrum actually touches the string. So, you know, don't worry, because I have to do that, and it's to do with the size of your hands and everything. Because I used to put my hand in that position, and that was part of the reason that I picked like that to start with, because I couldn't actually put my hand in what is, you know, quote unquote, the right position. The plectrum wouldn't be on the string. So what you have to do is just extend that thumb out slightly like that, and then you'll see that it quite easily touches the string. And when I'm doing my tremolo, hopefully you can see. You can see that thumb is quite long. It's not in like that. It's quite extended. Okay, now, so far we've talked about how we can hold the pick. We've talked about the angle of the pick in regards to the strings going that way. We've talked about the thickness of the pick and the pointedness of the pick. Now, the other thing that I want to bring into play is the angle of the pick in terms of the string of this way. Okay, now if you have your plectrum flat to the string like that, more of the surface of the pick will have to pass over it. Okay, whereas if you have it at an angle, less of that pick has to go over, and it passes over, because basically what it's doing is it's catching the side of the plectrum first, which it seems to slide over easier. Okay, so a slight angle there. Now, what I would say to you on this, and what I tend to do, okay, is when I'm playing very slowly, I have the pick flat like this. But the second I start to pick faster, I change the angle. Hopefully you can see that angle is different. Then when I go back, the reason I do that is because sometimes if you play the slower stuff, depending on what type of sound you're going to get or you want to get with the pick angle, it can sound a little bit kind of crunchy, I think. Okay, it's nice for doing harmonics and stuff. Sometimes I'll even hold it there for that. Okay, but if you want to get a nice smooth sound when you're playing slow, I definitely hold it flatter, and then as I speed up, and also what I do sometimes is you can move this plectrum, the angle of it, by kind of, if you can see what I'm doing there, I'm actually pushing the top of my thumb around like that, okay? And you can change the angle. And sometimes if I'm doing a thing and I want to pick really, really fast, I'll actually change that angle quite dramatically, okay, to get that faster passage. So I won't, if I say, for example, I'm starting there with a slight angle, okay, and then I come up, and I really want to, I might change the angle more. Now, you will see some people who pick making the angle actually go the other way, which is doing exactly the same job, it's just on the other side. Most people you'll see, the plectrum will be like that, okay? But what you will occasionally see, someone like George Benson, that will actually really extend this thumb out and the angle of the plectrum will be that way, okay? It's actually doing the same job, but instead of the angle being like that and going that way, the angle is like that. Now, if you're one of those people, don't worry. That is perfectly okay. And I've seen a lot of people doing it. And I even do it from time to time. When I'm doing country picking, sometimes I do it. So you can see that? Okay, so I'm just doing the angle. So you can use that thumb. Okay, you can see that the more arced the thumb is that way, the more angle is going to be going that way, and the more like that. And you can basically mess around with that. And it might suit you a little bit better. For me, it's kind of the same either way. Okay, so we've got one more thing to cover on the technique of the right hand, and that's going to be, where do we actually pick from? Well, again, it's very difficult to say what's right for most people, so I'm going to kind of give you the default setting, which I think works for the general masses, and that's picking from the wrist. Now, you'll see people like Gary Moore picking from the arm, and I don't think that anybody could say that the man can't pick, because he can pick fantastic, but he does it from the arm, and he uses, you know, a lot of it. You'll see him really using a lot of that arm. And that doesn't work for me. What I try and do is keep this part of the arm still and then just pick from the wrist there like that. So basically, if I can just show you slowly. But even though I'm trying to do it from the wrist, you will see some of the arm moving. Now, what Sean Baxter does, for example, and he was the person that showed this to me. Now, I've got to be honest, I don't use this technique a lot myself, but I did practice it for a while, and I do recommend that you have a go with it and see how it works for you. What he does is he actually starts, and he just starts this tremolo out, this picking out, just using this movement here with the thumb, and hopefully you can see that initial. Now, as I get faster, it actually looks like I'm just picking from the wrist, but I'm not. I'm using a little bit of this motion as well. And what you probably have noticed is it's cut down the movement from the arm, okay? Because I'm bringing most of that, I'm putting more pressure on this part. You know, so I've got this working, and this is now working a little bit less. Now, if I go slowly, you can see it. But as I speed up, you can see that it's reduced that motion. And it's good for when you come to play more complex things to sometimes use a little bit of that motion in there, okay? Just for the detailed stuff. And the way that I think Sean explained to me, if I remember rightly, was that if you're writing on a piece of paper, okay, when you're writing big, you know, letters and big circles or big doodles, then there's a good chance you're going to use, you know, your wrist to write like that. Say you're making lines on a piece of paper. But if you were to go in that piece of paper and you were to draw very intricate, tiny little circles, then you would be more likely to use, you know, the thumb and the first finger on the pencil for the detailed stuff. Okay, so I think it's one of those things that subconsciously I use, but I don't practice it that much personally. But do bear this in mind when there are players that are teaching you and saying, hey, never ever flick your thumb or never move this finger, do it all from the wrist. Watch them as they slow down. I guarantee you 99 times out of 100 there'll be a bit of this in there. Someone like Ingvar Malmsteen was a good example, and he probably doesn't even know or care because he's such a good picker. And if you really are that good naturally, okay, then it doesn't really matter, you know, how you're doing it. There's no point in changing something that works extremely well, which in his case it does. But as a lot of people, when they slow down or they get more detailed, definitely use a little bit more of that. Okay, so it's worth just practicing that a little bit. Or if you don't find that comfortable, then just do it more from the wrist. Okay, so what we're just going to look at quickly now is, now that we've got that technique and we're going to move on to a backing track very shortly, I'm going to give you some exercises to start trying to develop it, is like I said to you before, if you're only going to take one thing out of this DVD, what I would like to see you do is just taking a scale, okay, up one string. In this case, it's going to be starting on E, but the scale is going to be what we know as A Dorian. Okay, so it's just going to be, just on the B string now, it's going to be 5, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, 15, 17, 19, 20. And then what you do is just randomly move up on those notes. So the basic idea of tremolo picking is just to be able to bang away on one note as quickly as you can and then just move it up if that's what you choose to do. And that would be like someone like Eddie Van Halen would use that. And it does sound really, really good, I think. And also, if you are at a stage where, you know, connecting positions can be difficult for you, you want to move from here to position 3 or up to the octave of position 1, this is a great way to do it. So. Another thing I do with this, I think I got from Eddie Van Halen, was to use the tremolo picking going down and then incorporate a slide. So you notice there I was going. So I go up to the next note. So I'd say, for example, I'm on the 13B, go up to the 15B, and then up to the 17 and slide down. And then start on the next note. So. Okay, all sorts of fun you can have with that.